Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again here at Fiberflies. Tonight I'd like to do a little something different. I want to talk to you about the properties of Pacadub. I've had a few questions, why is it so much better than anything else? Well, it's not really. It's just different. It's no better than Wapsi or Umpqua or any other hairline dubbing that you can use. If there was anything that makes it better, what I would say is that it's more versatile. So here's how it comes. You get a box of 12 different colors, okay? And we have a few different assortments. We have the saltwater and salmon fly colors, and it comes either with or without UV flash in it. And then we have the trout colors, again with or without UV flash in it. So here's what I mean by versatile. When you go and you buy dubbing and you're starting off or you've been tying flies for a while, a lot of times, you'll go and you'll want to tie, say, a hare's ear. So you go out and buy either hare's mask or you buy a hare's ear dubbing assortment. Well, you don't have to necessarily do that with Pacadub. You can take the Pacadub right out of the package, and by the way, I do recommend that you take it out of the package and not necessarily use the holes. The thing about alpaca fibers is that the average staple length is 3 inches, so that gives you a long fiber to work with. It's semi-hollow, meaning it's got air pockets throughout each individual fiber, so it'll work for dry flies. You can scrub it up and make it look really buggy, so it's great for wet flies too. Let's just say, for example, that you wanted to tie a really super tiny dry fly that's really durable. You can spin this out and it makes like a dubbing noodle, just like this. By continuing to spin it, you're essentially creating a yarn or very, 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 very fine thread, so to speak, that is really, really, really durable when it's wrapped around the hook shank. Alpaca has the highest tensile strength of all natural fibers in this type of an animal. So what can you do with it? Well, let's go to the vise here. Let's just say that you wanted to tie, a large fly, but you really weren't sure. So go ahead and I start my thread. So I can take this right out of the package. If I grab a hold of the end and I pull on it, I get a nice little clump. You can see it's about 3 inches long. I can just kind of tailor the shape right there. I can make a tail. Attaching that to the hook shank. Wind down a little bit. So now I've got my tail. Trim this off. And because of the natural length of the fibers, if I wanted to do a nice tight body, I can just kind of spin it. Let's get a different piece here. So I can pull some out like that. I'm going to prep it by starting to spin. Here we go. Give me something to hold on to when I tie it in. I can tie that onto the hook shank here and wind up. And so if I want a nice tight body, what I like to do is turn it over, kind of lengthen it out some, and create what's called a dubbing noodle. Get a nice tight body that's going to be really durable, and by spinning it into a rope, it's going to show a lot of good segments. So when I wrap that, I start to wrap that around the hook shank. I don't know if you can see or not, but it's going to make a nice tight body with some natural segmentation there. You can see the little segments. And if I don't want it super tight, you know, I can unroll it a little bit, make a smooth body. Tie that off. And I'll tell you what I really like to do with this stuff is this. I like to use a dubbing loop. So if I form a dubbing loop, move my thread out of the way. And now I'm going to go ahead and use some of the stuff with the UV in it. This is already chopped up, by the way. So I'll take the same color. You know what? Let's just do a different color. Let's go with the golden olive color. Pull some dubbing out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a technique I use a whole lot when I do a dubbing loop. I'm going to take the pinky of my left hand and I'm going to put it inside the loop. That's to hold the loop open. I'm going to take my ring finger and my middle finger of my left hand and put it underneath the thread and lift up slightly so that it, you know, has about a 90-degree-ish angle. What that does is it allows for a loop to stay open here and for this thread here to be closed. And I'm going to hold my material in between my index finger and my thumb of my left hand. So now I can take a pinch with my right hand, stick it in that open loop, and pinch the two threads together, move these fingers out of the way and slide it up. Put my two fingers back there, and that just closes and holds it. You ever have dubbing fall out when you're trying to do a dubbing loop? Well, this technique will solve that. Okay, so we'll load up the dubbing loop. You can see this pretty quick. We'll call that good right there. Now, if you don't have a dubbing twirler, you can take your whip finishing tool, slide that right in there. Again, hold it at an angle and just twirl. You put the thread up here to the first joint and just twirl it. When you feel it starting to tighten around your finger, you can let go and you'll see that it just twists that dubbing up nice and tight. And you can make it as tight or as loose as you want. It's up to you. Okay, so I think that's probably good enough. Here's where a rotary vise comes in handy. You can just hold that, give it a few spins. And we'll tie that off real quick. You don't need much, just a couple tight wraps. So there you can see what it looks like from a dubbing loop. Or if you want to just, you know, do a normal dubbing, where you twist dub it, just take the dubbing into on your fingertip, hold your fingertip underneath the thread. Now you want to dub only in one direction. What I like to do is turn it clockwise on the thread as I'm looking at it. What I mean by that is I'm pushing my right thumb to the left and pulling my right index finger to the right. And the reason I do that is because if you watched any of my videos, you've heard me explain this before. As you wind the thread onto the hook, you're putting a quarter twist for every time you go around the hook shank, and that continues to just tighten up the body, or tighten up the dubbing on the thread. Okay, so far we've learned that you can use it for a tail. You can make a nice tight body if you wanted to do, say, a dry fly or a nice tight nymph where you had some segmentations. You can throw it in a dubbing loop and make it look really really buggy. That's probably a whole lot. Normally I'd use a little bit less. You can do a traditional twist dubbing. All different kinds of things that you can do with it. So let's pick a different color now. I think with this, I'm going to use brown. I think, just because the rusty spinner color, just like you did with the tail. If you grab a hold at the end here and just simply pull some off, you'll see how you got a nice fat end, and you'll see how the fibers taper out. If you just take that, twist the butt ends just a little bit, kind of shape it out. What that does is it gives you a nice profile for a wing. So now, I want that to be just a tad bit shorter. So now I'm using the same box of dubbing, no excess materials. I'm going to add a wing to this. Actually, you know what? I think I want to do a collar before this. I'm going to grab a feather. Sorry for misleading you. So I'm going to take just a regular feather. This is from a chicken neck, dyed a sunburst orange. Add that on there a little bit. Fold back the tip. Break the tip off. I'm going to fold those fibers over using the edge of my scissors just to help me a little bit. And I'm going to peel them back. Oops, that happens sometimes. Okay, I'll unwrap that. So we'll attach this feather again. There we go. And it's already folded back. So we're just going to wrap it around, kind of like a heavy hackle on this type of fly. There we go. And back off. There we go. So I lift the feather straight up, bring my thread straight up, fold the feather 90 degrees, and lock that in. Yep, the feather broke again. Alright, one more time, and if it doesn't work, we're just going to continue to go on. There we go. Let's try one with a little bit heftier stem this time. There we go. Got a feather. Stem off, trim off all this excess which you don't need. And one more time we'll fold those feather fibers a little bit. Now we're going to wrap this around a few times. Like I said, I kind of like a heavily hackled wet fly collar. That's just me. You don't have to do it as many times as I do. That's the cool thing about fly tying is you get to bring your personality and you get to make things the way you like them. You don't necessarily have to follow a recipe to the T. Okay. Tie that off. Peel everything back just a tad bit. Lock it down. I'm going to tidy up this area right up here because I'm getting ready to put on my wing. Okay. Now for the wing, I'm going to go ahead and place this on there. Now what I like to do is instead of tying it on and then trimming off the excess, I like to go ahead and trim it first. Put a couple loose turns on there and then pull the material back so that there's nothing to trim away. Now I can just build my head. Of course, now I'm going to be a liar, and I gotta trim off just a tad bit here because it's poking out. Oh, broke my thread. Okay, so if you break your thread, don't freak. Just make sure it's tight, let it hang. And just re-spool your bobbin real quick. Alright, so now what we can do, we're going to unwind that enough just so I can hold on to it. I'm going to hold that thread tight, and I'm going to just like attach my thread just like I was starting it in the beginning of the fly. Give it a couple wraps around the broken thread and the new tag, and lock everything in. There we go. Okay, so that's how you fix that. I'm just going to build up a head here real quick. Trim this out, comb it out nice and neat. Now when I go to whip finish, what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of head cement on the thread right there. Maybe about 3/4 of an inch or so. And we'll go ahead and throw a whip finish on here. That way I make sure the glue's all embedded into the threads. And then I trim. Now I can go ahead and add another layer of head cement. Just pull all that back. Just dab that head cement all around. There you go. So as you can see, with the exception of the feather, that fly is made entirely from our product, which is Alpaca, right out of one box. Thank you very much.